Hello, everybody. Hello, happy Friday, everybody. Today is October the 14th. We're almost in the middle of this month already. Hello. So great to see you. Thanks for joining me today. Today we're going to be doing block number 2. Block number 2 of the 2022 Quilt As You Go Quilt Along. I'm so glad you're here, either live or on the replay. Say hello. Just jump down to the comment section if you're watching on the replay. Say hello. Hi, everybody. Fun little fact. Lots of people are following along. Why are words so hard today? Following along in this quilt series already. And if you join in late, it's never too late to share. But I've seen lots of pictures of block 1 over on the Creative Crew. So many different fabric choices. It's been so much fun to see your progress. Thanks for sharing. And if you join along, whether during this series or a year later, we still want to see your progress. So feel free to share. Hello, everybody. It's so great to see you. Before we get started, Patreon members. Sunday, we're doing our quilt retreat. So I hope to see you, if not for the whole time, for a little while. Stop by. It's going to be lots of fun. The link to join the quilt retreat will be on our Patreon page. Hello. Hi. Another little tidbit of information, and I did put a link down in the description box. Today, Colleen, and I think Colleen's here, today Colleen shared a video of her making block 1 for this quilt series. And I don't know that she's following along in the whole quilt, like she's not making the entire quilt, at least not yet. I might persuade her, but she did make block 1 using some Halloween fabrics. And I think it's really cool because if you're like me, different teachers teach in different ways. And I might show you something in one way or from one view. And she made that block from beginning to end, and you might see a different view, or she might do it slightly different in a way that you understand better. So thanks, Colleen, for making that block and making a video. And I did put a link in the description box of this video. And I also put a link in block 1. For those of you who are watching block 1 of this series, you can find it there too. Sheila said, my block 1 did not work out, but I think I know what happened and we'll try again. I'm so glad you're going to try it again, Sheila. Vicki said it's snowing in Wisconsin. Oh my glory. I think it's still a little too warm outside where I am in Virginia for my taste for October. That's just me. All right, and I don't know if you see right there. Stay tuned to the end of today's video if you want to. Usually, once we're done making the block or whatever the subject is for the video, we usually stick around in the live chat and just chit-chat for a little while. It's a great time just to catch up with everybody and ask questions and things like that. That's kind of off topic of the subject of the video. I have something really special I want to share with you at the end of today's video. Y'all, I've had a couple questions about this series so far, and lots of you have been really helpful in answering questions, but I did want to highlight 2 questions. And someone had asked, or actually a couple people asked over on Creative Crew, can you make this quilt, this pattern that we're doing in the Quilt Along, as a traditional quilt top and forgo the quilt as you go process? Now, we're all different. Usually I make quilt tops and I quilt them after the top is done. But here recently, I've been featuring a lot of quilt as you go projects and blocks with you because for a lot of people, that's easier, right? My advice and my answer to this question is it's your quilt top. Absolutely. If you don't want to do quilt as you go, put it together as a normal quilt top. Piece the blocks together like you would a traditional quilt block, whereas our seams are going to be on top and covered by a sashing. Piece it so that your seams are on the back of your quilt top, right? That's the only thing you have to do differently. And you can forgo the sashing, or you can still put the sashing over top of your seams. It's totally up to you. And can you use smaller sashing? In this quilt, I'm covering all of my seams with a finished 1-inch sashing. We're covering seams that are about 1/2 inch wide or thick, right? So you have some room to reduce the size of your sashing and still be able to cover those seams on the front of your quilt. So absolutely, feel free to experiment with different size sashings. And I also have a picture of a quilt that I did not too long ago. I shared a picture of this quilt over on my business Facebook page, but I thought I'd share that with you before we get started today. Let me pull it up, my corn quilt. This is a little wall hanging I did about a month or so ago. Quilt as you go, and I covered my seams with sashing, and if you notice, the sashing is 2 different colors. So you can get creative with your sashing, right? So I used a 1-inch brown sashing, and then I made, it was like 1/2 inch or maybe 3/4 inch wide yellow sashing, and I double layered my sashing, which gives it a totally different look. So feel free to experiment with your sashing and have fun. Isn't that fun? So there you go. And also, before we get started with today's video, I meant to share this picture with you, and I totally forgot to upload it to the screens last week. But many of you have asked, what fabrics am I using? So I thought I would show and block to just a picture of all of the salvage edges. And maybe if you really love the fabrics I'm using, you might be able to find them. And this picture is going to cover the whole screen so you can see it a little bit better. But there we go. And I know the writing is still really small, but maybe you might be able to zoom in or take a screenshot of this picture, and then you can zoom in if you are interested in what fabrics I'm using. Now, some fabrics I'm pulling from my stash for applique, but as far as backgrounds and sashing, these are the predominant fabrics that I purchased when I went with Sheila to the quilt store. So there we go. I'm going to take that off the screen now. So if you missed it, you can come back on the replay and just take a screenshot. Today, we're going to be making block number 2, and then we're going to join it to the bottom of block number 1 and add our sashing, and then we're going to chit chat for a little bit. Okay, I think that's everything. All right. Let's switch over to the cutting mat. This week, if you get the download, again, it's in the description box down below. It's a 1-page PDF. We're making the gingerbread. He is applique. There is an optional SVG file in my Etsy shop. That link is also in the description box below. Or you can just head right over to the Etsy store if you want to get that. But if you have a cutting machine and you like using your cutting machine to cut out your applique pieces, then that might be of some interest to you. You don't need it. Here's all your tracing templates for the applique, okay? And one other thing I wanted to share with you, because I thought this was fun. In Adobe Reader, which is the software I use, which is free, you can find that by doing a quick Google search if you don't have it. You can change the size of your print. So reducing the size, let me just show you this before we move on. Reducing the size of this gingerbread man. One night this evening, I did that, and I cut out 2 pieces of felt and made myself a little gingerbread ornament. He's not done yet, but isn't that fun? I used a blanket stitch along the edges to close it up by hand, so I'm quite pleased with myself, but isn't he super cute? So get creative with these patterns and think of ways to use them outside the box, right? You can use this pattern on all kinds of quilts. You can use this pattern to make all kinds of projects. So have fun with it and Yeah, isn't he so cute? My cat loves it. Every time she comes in, she grabs it and goes to hide it. Usually I find this underneath the bed this week. Okay, so background fabric. Now I cut mine a little bit bigger because I'm going to be squaring this block up, but our background fabric is going to be 8.5 by 10. That's the finished size of this block. And I cut a batting and a backing that's a little bit bigger, and that's where we're going to get started. Hi everybody, it's so great to see you. Okay, so let's go ahead and move this out of the way. I did cut my pieces out with my scan and cut, so that was a lot of fun this week. I like to at least use my machine once a week to do something, if not more. But I did use the scan and cut to cut out my pieces. And let's go ahead and move this over. You'll see I have a box of goodies over here to the side. Let's move this out of the way for a second. Because, and let me also warm up my iron because she's sleeping. We want to, I did cut this a little bit bigger than 8.5 by 10.5 in case it shrinks any. We're covered. Let me go up. I think I had a question. Quiltmaker said, Lisa, you have SVG file on Gingerbread Man. Yes. Yes, the link for it is down in the description box. We want to center the Gingerbread Man on this background fabric. So I thought the easiest way to do that would just be to do some finger presses, right, to find a center. So I'm just going to fold this in half in both directions. That's going to help me sort of center the Gingerbread Man right in the middle of this block. I don't want hard creases. I just want a guideline. And I think you can see that. There you go. And here's our Gingerbread Man. So this week we don't have any pieces. We're just going to start fusing and sewing. And this will help me just kind of center the Gingerbread Man. And I just want to sort of find a center point there. So he's in the middle, just like that. I will be trimming a little bit off of the tops and the sides. So this just kind of helps me line him up right in the middle. I've used Heat and Bond Light on the back side of my applique pieces. I also had a question right before the live. As far as the Gingerbread Man fabrics go, can you use a fabric that has a print on it, or does it have to be a solid? My first initial answer, although I didn't have much time to write back right before the live, is it's your Gingerbread Man, and I hope you use whatever fabric that you want to use. But if you want a technical answer, I'm using a solid, but you don't have to. You could use a fabric that's got a print on it. I do think if you were to do that, a smaller print on your fabric might be better. But again, I think it all depends on the fabrics, right? Some larger printed fabrics might work wonderfully for your Gingerbread Man. So audition some fabrics and take a look and see. You are not stuck to a solid if you don't want to use a solid fabric. All right, we're going to let that cool off. And then I have the little pieces right here for the hands and the feet. I've already removed the paper. Actually, the paper stuck to the mat, my scan and cut mat. So when I took the pieces off, the paper just kind of stuck to the mat. But there we go. Let's see. I have to figure out what goes where. There we go. It takes me a second. Usually if I hand trace them, then I write on the back where these pieces go, right? But because I cut them out with my scan and cut and the paper is off, I don't really have that luxury. Let's go ahead and fuse those down before I move them. I have some brown corduroy that has been shrunk. Do you think that would be cute, or maybe texture? I am a quilter who loves adding texture to my quilt projects. So I would probably give it a try, right? I think I would probably use it. And that's just me. In all the things, I used lots of flannel because, again, I love the texture. And I tend to be sort of out of the box when it comes to fabrics I use in my quilts anyway. I use all the fabrics that you probably shouldn't be using in your quilts. I use them. The rayons, the silks, the polyesters. I use it. If I think it's pretty and I like it for my quilt, I use it. So there we go. We have fused the hands, the feet portions. I also cut out the buttons from fabric, and let me just put them on here. Do I want to use the fabric buttons, or do I want to sew on buttons? I do know that I'm going to sew on 2 buttons for the eyes. So maybe let's use the buttons from the PDF that I have cut from fabric. Let's do that. Colleen said, "You're a rebel." I just, I like what I like, and a lot of the times I don't like for rules to be imposed on me that, life is short. Use what you want to use, right? So those are the fabric buttons right there. You'll also see you have bigger eye circles and smaller pupil circles that you can trace and cut out from fabric if you want. And you have the nose. I did cut out the nose with the Scan and Cut, so we'll go ahead and put that in there. I'm kind of just guessing where that goes. Let's just fuse that in place. For the mouth, I think it would be adorable if you did a hand stitch, like a chain stitch or a whipped back stitch. Look at me using technical terms for hand stitching. But because we're live, I don't want to make you suffer while I sit there and do that. So today for the mouth, I'm going to do a satin stitch by machine. And by all means, any portions of these you could stitch by hand. You don't have to use the fabric applique. You could do a little scalloped edge with a hand stitch, and that would be adorable. So again, get creative, think outside the box, and have fun with it. I do know for the eyes, I want to use 2 buttons, but I've decided I'm not going to sew those on until everything is stitched down and quilted. I don't want the buttons to get in the way of me doing some stitches. That means that the knots that I tie my buttons with will probably show on the back, and I'm totally okay with that. So there we go. All my fabric pieces are in place. Let's bring over my backing fabric. Again, this is a little bit bigger than the top, and I probably should give that a press real quick. That's better. And I am going to glue base the layers this week. You could pin base them if you prefer. Just a couple swipes of a glue will do. This is just a clear glue Elmer's clear washable glue, school glue stick. I don't know why I'm having such a difficult time speaking today. There we go. Couple little swipes of glue. It's just going to act like a whole bunch of pins pinning these layers together. And I'm going to dry it before we bring this to the sewing machine. So I'm not worried about the needle gumming up or anything crazy happening at the sewing machine. And that really only just takes a second, y'all. Do you know one of the parts about the lives that I don't like is that I miss so much of the live chat while we're making the block. I do. I miss all of the chat, but I do come back later on and I sit there and scroll through the whole thing and read the conversation just because I feel like I miss out on so much. Ooh, I do see that Sue has me on her smart TV. We have a TV in our bedroom, and I have pulled up YouTube videos of mine to show Harlan. I'll be like, honey, what do you think about the way I edited this video? Let's pull it up. Our TV in our bedroom is kind of big. It's on the bigger side, and it's just like, whoa, my face is so huge. All right, we're going to give that a second to cool off. Now, over at the sewing machine, and we're going to switch there in a second, I do have my free motion foot on, and I'm going to free motion stitch. Should I? Should I? Yep, we're going to do it. Free motion stitch this gingerbread man. Now, by all means, if you want to use a different stitch, please do. Please, you're not concreted to the same things that I do. So let's talk about some stitches that would look super cute with this, right? A blanket stitch, one of my favorites, would be adorable on this. I almost wish that I had brought over some brown thread because in a heartbeat I would switch over, but I didn't. So I'm going to stick to what my original plan, but a blanket stitch would look adorable. A satin stitch, a zigzag stitch. Lots of decorative stitches in our machines would look adorable, sewing down not just the gingerbread man, but also these parts as well. Now I'm going to use a free motion stitch, and I'm going to go around the outsides of each one of these applique pieces, okay? And I'm kind of excited to see what you do with your block. Oh, Peggy has me on her big TV too. Y'all don't look too close. All right, so let's go ahead and switch over to the sewing machine real quick. There we go. You'll see I have my free motion foot on. And I sort of had the thread color I'm using kind of matches this. So in this area, it's going to kind of blend in, but on my gingerbread man, it's going to really show up, right? Where do we want to start today? Let's start in a place where it's not going to show so much because I do like to take a little couple stitches back and forth when I start. So let's start right there. And not on the dark background. And I'm just starting. I'm going to bring up that bobbin thread, and then we're going to move right along. I think you'll be surprised on how fast this goes using the free motion stitch. All right, here we go. 3 little tiny stitches. I barely moved it at all. Now the thing about it is we do want to catch the raw edge of these scalloped pieces. So I might have to do some echoing or traveling right back over the stitch that I created. And I'm just going to try to keep it nice and neat. This would be great practice if you want to learn how to use your free motion foot. Yep, we're going to echo that stitch. I'm not even going to try to stitch directly on it. And just travel right back down to the bottom there. you can see I go pretty slow, right? So that is the first stitch in that direction. I'm going to move up a little bit and just follow that. Just do an echo right back around. That's much easier than trying to stitch exactly in the same place that you stitched before. See that? We're going to travel right over here. And then when we get all the way back where we started, I'm going to do just a couple little tiny stitches just to lock it off. But I'm not going to cut my thread. I'm going to jump over to the buttons and I'm going to stitch around the outside of the buttons. The holes in the buttons are so tiny. I'm not even going to mess with trying to stitch those. And then I will jump up and stitch his little nose, right? You can see I'm kind of staying away from the edge quite a bit. You can sew closer to the edge if you want. Now because this is raw edge applique, stitching it down like this, if I were to wash this quilt, it is very possible that the edges would fray. Even with the heat and bond light on the back of the fabric, that does help prevent a lot of fraying, but it probably would fray over time. If you don't want it to fray, you need to use a stitch like a satin stitch or a zigzag stitch. That's going to help a lot and prevent a lot of fraying. All right, we're going to jump right down here. And then we're jumping to the next button. I'm trying not to hit the camera right there. Let's see if I can just eyeball it. There we go. And the last button. And then we're going to jump up and stitch his little nose in the same exact way. I might do a couple little circles right around the edge of that nose. So let me just cut this thread, and I'll just let you see what this looks like. I do have a couple of jump stitches to cut, right? But there we go. I'm trying to decide, do I want to do a background quilting on this particular block? Do we not? You know what? For this particular block, I'm just going to let the gingerbread man sing. And but by all means, if you want to quilt the background, look at all the space. You could do all kinds of pretty quilting in the background if you want. Let me switch over to my different foot because I do want to come in with a satin stitch and stitch down his mouth while we're right here at the sewing machine. Ta-da, ta-da. Ta-da, ta-da. Just making sure the microphone's still working. Y'all, I've done so much research and settings to try and keep that microphone from cutting out during the live. I'm hoping I got it right now. All right, and I'm going to put on this open toe foot so I can see better. Hopefully you can see better. And I just want to give myself a little guideline. Although it won't look exactly like what's on the PDF, it'll be unique to my quilt block, right? But I know that I want to come in like that and just give my gingerbread a quirky little smile. So what I just marked on the dark fabric, this is a water-soluble pencil made by Clover. You can find these at Joann's. A lot of quilt stores carry them. I'm sure maybe Walmart in the sewing section, and certainly you can find them online. But that's what I just used in case you're wondering. It shows up really nice on dark fabric. So let me choose my satin stitch, and I always like to just do a test to adjust my settings with my satin stitch because you can make it really wide or really skinny. So let's just mess around with some settings and I'll let you know what I'm using here in just a second. All right, I know I want it wider than that. And possibly even wider than that. Okay, I don't know if you can see that very, very well, but that looks good. So now my settings and what I get on my block might look different than yours, but this is a good starting point if you're interested. And you can do this with a zigzag stitch as well. 2.8 on the width and a 0.4 on the length. Again, test it out and see before you start stitching. And when I start this, I'm going to take a few stitches. And then I'm going to back stitch and lock that start point in place, okay? There we go. This is a much quicker alternative to hand sewing. I also wanted to say that I know many of you love the layout of this quilt pattern, right? You love the size of the blocks. You love the different size blocks. But you're not interested in making a Christmas quilt at this time. You can absolutely use all the size and measurements of each one of the blocks and substitute, instead of a gingerbread man, how cute would it be to do a cat or a baseball or anything else on this block, right? So feel free to use the block patterns and swap out the applique, right? So I think that's all the stitching we're going to do on the sewing machine for this applique, and I'm just double checking, and I think that is it. So let's switch back over here. All right, so I'm going to cut these little jump stitches on the front. There we go, and let's flip it over to the back and cut those two. When we're done, this block is going to be all finished. I won't have to come back and remember to do this later. There we go. Y'all see me throwing those threads in the trash now? Aren't you so proud of me? My cats have me rethinking sewing room safety. I even have a video I'm working on of my tips for sewing room safety. Just little things. All right, so let's flip this over. I think right now, before I add the buttons, I'm going to go ahead and square this up because I want to use an omni grid ruler to square this up, and I don't want it teeter-tottering on those buttons. I think it'll be more accurate if I square it up before I add those buttons. But I feel confident that it's going to remain at a true size if we square it up at this point. So let me grab my ruler. So for this block, it finishes at 8.5 inches wide, right? And 10.5 inches tall. So I'm going to use my 10.5 inch omni grid ruler, and we're going to square up from top to bottom first, the 10.5. And y'all, I really feel like I need to stand up to do this part. So give me just a second. Where's the center mark? There we go. Let me get it nice and straight, nice and straight. Think, Lisa, 5 1/4. There we go. Scoot it over just a little bit. All right, I'm going to take a little bit off the top and the bottom. Let me just flip it because I don't so much like to cut towards me, at least not on camera. We're going to square off the bottom. So now it is exactly 10.5 inches long, right? And then we're going to square up and trim away the extra on the sides. So 8.5 is 4 1/4. So I'm just lining up the nose, which is pretty much in the center of the block at the 4 1/4 mark, right? And then I'm making sure it's nice and lined up to the bottom edge. We're going to take off the right side and then flip it around, and now we can line it up at 8.5. And the bottom edge, and it's all nice and straight. And we're going to clean up that side. So there we go. There's our finished block. All we have to do now is add some embellishments like our buttons, right? He is adorable, right? Isn't that so cute? So let me grab my little sewing needle. And for the thread, I'm going to be using this Wonderfill pearl cotton thread. You could use DMC thread, any thread you want to, right? Sewing on buttons. I do have a size 24 chenille needle that I'm going to use. And I have a piece of thread cut. Let's see if that's long enough. Now, y'all, if y'all have watched my videos, especially all the things videos, y'all know I'm not the best at sewing on embellishments. It's usually not the neatest, but I'm just going to tie a knot at the end of this thread. We're going to come in from the back, wherever we want those eyes to be. I will trim up that thread on the back, so it's just a little knot there. And now we're just sewing on some eyes. Of course, these buttons have 4 holes, so let's figure out where we want this eye to be. There we go. I think that looks good. And then I'm going to come up through one of the other holes and go back through. Now I probably should do this a couple of times, right? Although this is a good, thick, sturdy thread, I think I'm just going to do it one time. So there's the first eye. Now to keep it nice and neat, I am going to, from the back, I'm going to just tie myself a little knot through one of my stitches right here, just to keep that first button nice and snug, right? I usually have a problem with my buttons coming loose, so I'm just going to put just a single little knot right there. Then I'm going to take with my needle, and I know I'm kind of far away and it's hard to see with the thread color and the busy background fabric, but I'm just going to go right into that backing and travel through the middle of my quilt, right on over to approximately where I want the second button, okay? I know everybody's saying you can hide. I'm so horrible at hiding the knots, y'all. I would love to be able to hide the knots underneath the button, but I'm just not good at it. I need more practice. There we go. And you know what? I'm okay with that. It's the back of my quilt. I'm all right with that. Let's see, where do we want that eye to be? Right there. Do we want it right there? There we go. Perfect placement for the eyes. Let's come back up through the other 2 holes. There we go. Back down. There are probably a million better ways to sew on the buttons, so please don't use my sewing techniques as the tutorial part, right? Let me just tie this off on the back, and I will bury this thread right into the middle of the quilt to hide that part at least. There's one little knot, and I like to double knot it. And then we're just going to run that thread tail right into the middle of the quilt and trim it off. I don't think that's horrible, right? Just don't look too closely. So there is my finished gingerbread man. His face is a little quirky, but I absolutely love it. All right, so there is that. And then, if y'all remember last week, we did block 1. And if we take a look at this diagram on the information sheet, we see block 1 goes right over top of block 2, just like this. Now we had some discussions last week, right, about the points of the piecing in block number 1. And when we piece these two blocks together, that point should come right to, but still show on the front of our quilt, right? But then we cover it up with sashing. And so the big concern was losing those points. And some people are okay with that. And then some people really don't want to lose the points in their piecing, right? So I'm going to show you maybe an alternative to where maybe we won't lose the point. But I'm going to take a look at this, right? Because my piecing and squaring up, if you look, I do have at least a 1/4 inch beyond my points, but I'm going to find two sides that have a little bit more space there, a little bit more wiggle room, right? And put those two right here that are going to be where the sashing is going to cover up. So this one looks like it has a little less room. These all look like they have more room. So I'm going to situate my block just like that. I might have a little smidgen more than 1/4 inch down here to join these blocks together. So these two blocks should measure exactly 8.5 inches wide. Instead of sewing them together so that the seam is going to be on the back, my seam is going to be on the front for this Quilt As You Go project. Again, tons of different ways to do this, so join your blocks the way that you want to. All right, so let me see. I dropped my sashing on the floor. Let me grab that up off the floor. And then we're going to jump over to the sewing machine. We're going to piece these two blocks together, but I also wanted to take off this open toe foot and put on my standard foot that I use for piecing quilt blocks together using a 1/4 inch seam allowance, okay? And I guess now would be a good time to change this upper thread because I'm trying to decide which thread color to use. Yeah, I want to use a gray thread. I didn't have any thread that matched my sashing color exactly right. And I didn't think about that until right before the start of the video. I've also lost my little clips, my little scissors. Where'd they go, y'all? Here they are. I want to go ahead and switch out this top thread to a gray thread so I don't forget. If this is the first block that you're watching in this quilt series and you have questions about the sashing and all that, make sure to check out the first block because we answer lots of questions like how I made my sashing and how to sew down the sashing and join your blocks. I'm going to be using the sewing machine, but you might not like the look of that. You might want to hand sew it. So we did answer lots of questions in block 1, the first week of this series. And I did, oh no, there goes the thread on the floor. I did make a playlist for this series, and that link is in the description box. So you might want to save the playlist if you plan on visiting these videos later, because they're all saved in the same place. Now I just set a 1/4 inch seam allowance, and we're going to piece these blocks together. So I'm not sure if you can see this. I want my seam on the top. So I'm going to put right side or the backs together, right? And line them up. Nice and straight, nice and straight. And we're going to sew this seam with a 1/4 inch seam allowance. Now you'll see right here, you've got some layers going on. So you might find it easier to use a walking foot for this part. You also might find it easier to increase your stitch length, to feed all those layers through there evenly. So I just did move my stitch length up to a 2.6. So if you're having issues feeding those through, try that. I want to decrease the pressure on my presser foot because it is wanting to, see that, scoot this top block over just a little bit. I should have done that to start with. There we go. Now we're going to bring this over and I'm going to try to press this seam open as much and as flat as possible. So let's come back over here. Let's scoot this over and let's warm up the iron again. Ooh, Jacqueline's sewing machine. Yeah, most sewing machines will sew the buttons on for you. Yes. So if that's easier for you, absolutely. All right, because I didn't quilt my background, it's wanting to do this ruffling thing. I really wish I would have quilted the background now. So there's that tidbit of knowledge. I guess it's never too late. I could always come back and quilt that background nice and flat. Didn't think about that. I'm just taking my finger and I'm going to go in there and work that seam open before I press it. See that? I probably am going to lose that little point, but I'm okay with that. I'm just working that seam just like this so I can bring my iron over. I do think, y'all, that when the live is done, I'm probably going to add some stippling or something to that background and really flatten it out. I'm not really crazy about these ruffles going on. All right, so let's bring in the iron. I just want to press this seam as flat as possible before we add that sashing on. And of course it wants to be difficult. There we go. Might even, was that even warmed up? Hold on a second, y'all. There she goes. I hear her warming up now. Okay. I'm just pressing and flattening out that seam just a little bit. Now I do want to show you, because many people ask, do you have to use the 1-inch sashing, right? This is going to cover a good portion, just like that. But this seam, when you open it up, is only 1/2 inch wide. So if you want to use a thinner sashing, by all means, feel free to do that. The goal of this is just to cover and hide that, right? That's just the goal of it. So I'm going to cut myself off a little piece of sashing that's a little bit longer. And I'm going to use a glue stick because that's what I like to do. I'm going to add some glue stick. You can absolutely pin your sashing if you want to. Just a little bit of glue on both sides. And I'm going to glue baste this sashing. Now, to avoid losing too much of this point, I'm going to kind of scoot the sashing more into block 2 than over top of block 1, but just enough to cover this seam right there, right? That's all we're trying to do with this. Just cover that seam, and I am going to lose a little bit of that point. So let me dry that glue. I guess too, you want to make sure that you're putting it on nice and straight. Yep, we might meet back for week number 3, and you might see my gingerbread man will have a quilted background. I'm pretty sure of it. So let's just make sure that looks pretty nice and straight. Again, if you don't like the look of the stitching on the back when sewing the sashing down, you might want to just do a quick whip stitch and sew it down just on the front. But I'm going to sew it down with the sewing machine, okay? Sue said, how would it be to satin stitch the 2 pieces together? That might work. Ooh, that might be a great way. I think if you wanted to do that, do a basting stitch first with a looser zigzag just to get those 2 blocks butted up against each other and locked in, and then come back with a finishing satin stitch over top. That might be a great way to join them. I don't know that you'd lose your points on block 1 if you did it that way, right? Lots of different ways you could join these blocks. So I'm just going to do a straight stitch right close to the edge of this sashing piece. To do that, I like to use my little zipper foot because I can see much better the edge of that sashing. Clip on there, zipper foot. There we go. Straight stitch. Move this over just a little bit. Just moving my needle right to the edge of that zipper foot on the right. And I'm going to use a 2.4 stitch length for this, and we'll see how that does. And I like having that extra off the edge of my quilt because I like to start sewing into something before I start sewing onto my block. With that zipper foot, I'm able to get right up next to the edge of this sashing. We're going to lift up the needle and we're going to come right back down the other way, right along that edge. So I'm going to show you here because I think the lighting might be really great. But see how close I am to the edge? Now, of course, you could use any decorative stitch in your sewing machine. You could use a blanket stitch, a zigzag, all the stitches. Y'all, I feel like it's your quilt, and if you think a different stitch would look better there, please use that. You are not stuck to just doing a straight stitch. Matter of fact, I think a blanket stitch would be adorable. And if I were making this quilt in my own time and not during a live, I probably would get more creative with my stitches. But those stitches seem to take a little bit more time, right? So there we go. So let's come over here, and I'm just going to take some scissors and eyeball it and just trim off this extra sashing, just like that. There we go. So now we're ready to make block number 3 next week. And block number 3, let's see, I believe is the snowman. So we just did these 2 blocks together, right? So next week we're going to work in the middle towards the right, and we're going to make the snowman. And we will join that at the end of that block video. Is the glue water soluble? Yes. Yes, it is. So if you were to wash this quilt, all the glue would wash out the first time you washed the quilt. I don't foresee me ever washing this quilt, but if you did, the glue would wash out. If we make this out of flannel, could we leave the seam allowances and make it a rag quilt? Sarah, I think that's a great idea. That would be adorable. Yes, make it a rag quilt. You don't even have to use flannel. You could rag the edges of the cotton as well, right? That would be super cute. All right, so next week we're doing snowmen. I will upload the video for, or the thumbnail for next week on Wednesday. So you have plenty of time to get the pieces and pre-cut your stuff if you want to sew with me live. I know a lot of people like to do that, and a lot of people like to pre-cut their stuff, right? And if they have questions, they don't necessarily sew during the live, but it's a great time to ask questions, right? And you've already have an idea of what you're working with. Okay, y'all. I have something I want to share with you. Now that our block is done. Let me just give it a second, though, because I know I've probably missed lots of questions, and if you're still here, if you have a question, I want to make sure we take a second to answer those. See this? I don't love that. The good thing is I can still go back in and do some quilting in this background, right? I just will need to be careful not to quilt over top of my sashing. But if I did a meandering or some kind of loop-de-loop or some snowflakes or something, it would eat up this bunching and gathering. And it would appear that my block is much flatter. I think I'm going to run into this issue. And it's kind of good that I'm having this issue, because if you don't quilt your background, you're going to be dealing probably with the same exact thing. We're going to run into this when we add a sashing here, right? When we join block 3. And it's also going to happen down here when we add the Joy to the World block. So I want to eliminate that. But I'm not going to do at this point, because we've already squared up the block and it's exactly the right measurement. I don't want to do any quilting at this point that's going to shrink my block. So I'm going to do something very loose, but I will do something to eliminate this from happening here and here. Kind of good that it did happen during the live, because you can see what's going to happen. Sylvia said, Lisa, can you use felt with heat and bond, or does the iron not like the felt? Well, here's the thing, Sylvia. I bought some felt, like the same felt that I used this right here. This is the cheapest craft felt you can buy. And I got it from Joann's. I got a whole stack of a lot of different colors for $5. The label says it's polyester. I would not add any heat to this. Let me back up and rethink this. I I think I would be careful adding heat to this. Because the polyester does shrink, right? And you don't want to melt it. So try a little scrap, cover it with a Teflon sheet or some parchment paper, and try applying a little bit of heat to it. I hate to say yes or no because you might get different results. But I do think you want to be careful because the polyester might melt, and I do think it'll most definitely shrink. Okay, so just keep those things in mind. Now, if you want to use some fuzzy textured, you could use some wool, right? Wool applique. That's a lot of fun. Yeah, Anitra just said 100% wool felt. Yes, Anitra, look at my blanket stitch along the edge. I'm getting better. Although I feel like I've totally neglected the project we're working on together on the side. I am getting better with my stitches. Mary Jo said, what about a serpentine stitch? I don't know that if I know what a serpentine stitch is. Even with that said, whatever stitch you want to use, you can most certainly try, right? And if you don't want to try it on your block, try it on a side. Make up a little quilt sandwich, a practice one, and test your stitches there before bringing it over to your project, right? Maybe add in some super tiny buttons as snowflakes around the gingerbread man, and it will flatten it out without shrinking the top maybe. That's a good idea. I'm so glad I come back and read these because I don't want to forget that. I might do that. Wanda said if we quilted the fabrics first, then added the gingerbread man, would that help? Possibly. Possibly, but you're going to get a different effect on the back, right, Wanda? So if you were to quilt, let's just say that if you quilted some straight lines like cross-hatching, lines going in both directions, and your entire block was quilted first, and then you add your gingerbread man and you stitch that down. Just know that on the back, which it's the back, right? Who cares? Who cares? When you stitch down your gingerbread man, the quilting design is going to be continuous. So I know it's really hard to see this, but if I hold it like this, you can see the outline of the gingerbread man, right? So if I do some background quilting around this, I would only do that around the gingerbread man. So if the back was important to you, I think it would be a much neater finish not having the entire block quilted. But that's just me. You might find it a lot easier to do it that way, right? Colleen says, I have an ornament from my husband's childhood, and it looks a lot like that one. I shared this ornament on Facebook, and somebody else said the same exact thing. Oh, Mary Jo said, the serpentine is a wavy stitch, so it wouldn't pull it in that much. That might be a perfect stitch to do that. I don't want to lose any of my size, whatever I do. Anitra said, I think cross-hatching would look like a cooling rack. Oh, it would. It would. Maybe I'll do some cross-hatching. I don't know. I'll surprise you next week with whatever I decide. But it will look different than this. I can tell you that right now. Okay, y'all. I have something I want to share with you. And I've had this for about 2 weeks now. Maybe a little more than 2 weeks. Maybe a little more than 2 weeks. And I was going to make a separate video for it, but I don't think so. I don't think I'm going to do that. Because I really feel like the people I want to share this with the most watch my videos from week to week, so you're not going to miss it, right? You know what I did, remember, is to bring my little, there we go. Let's clean up the background first. Da-da-da-da, let's get myself ready. I don't know why I'm so nervous sharing this with you. I don't know why. I'm so nervous about it. I have something I want to share with you. Today, do y'all know what that is? I don't know why I'm so dang on nervous about sharing this. It's a huge accomplishment, right? It really is. Do you know what that is? Recently, a couple weeks ago, I passed 100,000 subscribers on YouTube. Yes, it's my play button. And I've gotten this. I've had it for about 2 weeks. I haven't even opened it up yet because I've been like, I want to share it, but I don't know. Do I want to make a video all about it or just share it intimately within another video? And let's do it this way, right? Thank y'all so much. Thank you. Yeah, so let's open it up. Look at my hands. I don't know why my hands are shaking so much. Harlan has wanted to open this box since the day it came in. And I've been like, let's wait. Let's wait. Y'all, I've waited like 6 years. So I'm done waiting. Let's open it up. I will tell you this as we're opening this up. This is a huge accomplishment. It really is. And I certainly would not have ever made this accomplishment without all y'all subscribing to my channel. I really wouldn't. So let's see what's inside. You know who else I'm really thankful to? And y'all might think I'm silly, but had God not leaded me to make videos that I put off for 2 years arguing with him, we would never be here. So yes, I'm thankful mostly to the Lord because he is good, y'all. He is good. But yeah, everyone else who has subscribed, thank y'all so much. Let's see what's inside. Congratulations on your subscriber milestone. We are honored to take part in recognizing your achievement and want your experience to be exceptional. This award was inspected by and packaged with great care by Rick. Ooh, that's awesome. And so it comes with a letter. That's awesome. I will read that because I don't think it's in focus. I'll read that here in a little bit. There we go. All right. Recognize your team. I think you're my team. So y'all, thank y'all so much. Thank you so much. And I like to always thank my moderators. When I go live, I certainly don't like going live without moderators. So thank y'all so much for keeping an eye on everything so I can focus during the lives. And there's my award, presented to Lisa Capen Quilts for passing 100,000 subscribers. Y'all are awesome. Y'all are so awesome. So I don't know where I'm going to put this. The lights are shining on it. I don't know where I'm going to put it, but it's just a reminder. Let me switch to this camera. It's just a reminder to all of y'all who have started YouTube channels not to give up. Can I be really honest with you? Well, I like being really honest with you. Making YouTube videos, having a YouTube channel is not easy. It's not easy, especially if you are working, you got a family, you have responsibilities, life happens. It is not easy running a YouTube channel, uploading videos, making videos, thinking of things to make videos about, dealing with the comments. Not the nice comments are awesome, but with everything, there's good and bad, right? Dealing with that. Making videos that you think are going to do really well and you've poured your heart and soul and time and energy into for it not to do well. all of those things. You're going to experience all of it. Do not give up. Do not give up. With everything comes good and rewards, and it also comes with headaches and disappointments. So as you're making your videos for your channels, please be encouraged. Do not give up, right? Don't give up, y'all. I don't want to cry. I'm not going to cry, but I think this is really awesome. This has been a milestone I've wanted to achieve for some time. So thank y'all so much. Just to let you know, I mean, I know some people, not everybody, some people are kind of funny getting this award and passing this milestone does not mean that I make thousands of dollars more. It doesn't. So, when people think about stuff like that, they think, oh, I'm not going to subscribe. She's already got 100,000 subscribers and she's making lots of money. Can I just tell you, you do not make money on YouTube by the number of subscribers you have. That's not how getting paid on YouTube works. And I can only speak for my channel personally. In my experience, my videos, because I'm in a quilting niche, in my experience, don't bring in the high-paying ads. That's how you get paid on YouTube, is the ads they put on your videos, not by your subscriber count. So if you haven't subscribed and you want to, it doesn't cost anything. I don't make thousands of dollars more because you do or you don't. So I just thought I would put that out there too. Because I hear lots of chatter, I read lots of forums and things like that. And I know there's a lot of misinformation out there. So do the people you like to watch a huge favor and just subscribe. All it really does is help them make milestones such as this, right? I certainly could not put down all the other elements of my business and just make YouTube videos. I'd have to have another job other than all the other things I do. But I think this is really awesome, and thank y'all so much. I'm going to tell you, I've been really nervous about opening this. Thank y'all so much. I don't know why I'm so nervous about opening it. Yeah. Yeah, Val said, always thank the Lord. Absolutely. And I thank him the most. I don't know if you know my backstory. This might be your first time here, and you might have just clicked on this live, and here I am talking about God. But God is very important to me. And had he not put this on my heart several years ago, we wouldn't be here. We wouldn't be making this quilt, right? And I put it off for a couple years. I don't know if you know my backstory of how we came to be here. But yeah, I was feeling led a couple years, 2 years, almost to the day, of feeling like I needed to make YouTube videos, and I kept thinking I wasn't good enough. Y'all, I don't have a degree in sewing. I don't have an arts degree on color theory. I don't have a degree on making quilt patterns. What else? I went to 1 semester of college right after I graduated high school. That's all of my college experience. That's it. So it's not like I'm super educated in anything that I'm showing you. But I'm here to tell you that you can have all of that stuff, but if you aren't feeling led to share it with anybody, it doesn't matter, right? I don't have any of that stuff. I just have, I have it on my heart to share what I know. It doesn't mean it's always right. It doesn't mean I'm not going to mess up. I just want to share it. And that's really all you need to create a YouTube channel. A desire to share that with you. Yeah, Candy said passion about a craft is really all you need. Absolutely. Melissa said, I have a college degree. It did nothing but teach me how to open doors. Well, sometimes that's really important too, Melissa. Right? But I just want to share that with you. If you feel like, if you've had this idea, you know, I want to make videos and show what I do, I hope you try it, and I hope you're super successful. The thing is, it just takes work, and you don't, when you're watching a video, and y'all, I watch lots of videos. When you're watching, you're not thinking about what all it took to get that video up for you to see. It takes a lot, and yeah, don't give up. Yeah, and Sheila said, and knowledge of tech. I have learned so much. You know what I'm really proud of? Really proud of this week? My microphone didn't stop working. I have self-educated myself, and sometimes that's the best education right there, right? I have self-educated myself on running technical things, webcams, microphones, OBS, live streaming, and I've come a long way. Still have a long ways to go, y'all. But thank you so much for joining me in this journey. Thank you so much for helping me achieve this award. I appreciate you so much. And I will think of each and every one of you when I look at it. I don't know that I'm going to put it anywhere where you see it in my videos. That personally for me, it's just not me. But I will have it here so that I can see it and just be thankful for each of you. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. I cannot wait to see you next week. Again, if you're on Patreon, we're hanging out all day Sunday. And I'm super excited about that. That's one of my most favorite days of the month is when we do our quilt retreats. And if y'all live in the Virginia Tidewater area, Capen Seafood Festival is this weekend. I'm really excited about that. I get to go check out lots of craft vendors. They have not held the Seafood Festival for 2 years now. So we're excited to go hang out there probably tomorrow. So if you're walking around the Seafood Festival tomorrow, I might see you there. If you walk by me and you recognize me, please say hello. I'd love to get a hug and chat. Okay, everybody, have a fantastic weekend. I'll see you next Friday, okay? Whew, I can take a deep breath. I don't know why I was so nervous about that. All right, everybody, see you Friday.